Hello and welcome to this brief presentation on social styles and high performance. Let's begin by having a look at this concept of social styles. What does it actually mean? Well, when you look at an individual and you're trying to identify their social style, what you would do is you would look at what they say and what they do. And from that, you'll be able to categorize their social style. So a definition would be of social styles would be behaviors that people engage. So behaviors engaged when people interact with each other. So when interacting with others. So bear that definition in mind when we're talking about social styles. Very simple. What people say and what they do will identify their social styles. In relation to performance and high performance in particular, we can have a look at that by looking at a graph. What we'll do is we'll just draw a basic graph here. And down here, we'll have time. And on this graph, we're going to have performance. And what we want to do is just represent what would be average performance. So we'll just put a dotted line here to identify average performance. So that will be average performance. And then we can have another line that will represent actual performance. So this line will demonstrate actual performance. So if you think about this in relation to time, let's just say this represents Q1 and this is Q2, Q3 and Q4. So what we notice here is that from Q2 onwards, this team or individual is performing above average. And what we're interested in is how can we get consistent above average performance from individuals or teams? What's creating problems that might allow them to end up being down here where they're below average performance? We're looking at basically barriers and impediments. So we're just going to list a few of them down here. So we're going to talk about impediments or barriers. Impediments to high performance. Now this will not be a exhaustive list, but it's going to point out a few main barriers to high performance, and then we're going to see how social styles can be used to eliminate these barriers. So when you think about it, when you're working in a team, there may be issues around relationships. So relationship issues. People just not getting on for whatever reason, a clash of personalities or whatever the case may be. There may also be issues around communication. So we're going to have to put down communication issues. One person may think they're communicating in a highly efficient manner, whereas somebody else might think they're being blunt or rude, and that's going to cause problems amongst the team. There may also be issues around work practices. So work practice issues. Some people may like to work at a fast pace, some people might like to work at a slower pace, so this can cause all kinds of difficulties in a team environment. So the problem with these items here is that they lead to conflict. And conflict is going to distract people from performance, and they're going to end up going below average if it persists. So now we're going to look at the social styles model and see how that can help us eliminate some of these impediments. The social style model we're going to look at is the TRACOM social style model. Now this model is very straightforward in a lot of respects, and that's great because it makes it easier for us to remember and easier for us to apply. The model is based on two criteria. The first criteria relates to what's known as responsiveness. And when we talk about responsiveness, we're talking about how people respond from an emotional perspective when they're interacting with other people. And some people would be emotional or like to emote when they're interacting with other people, and other people will be a lot more reserved, so they will be controlled in their emotional response when interacting with people. So you may know somebody who's highly emotive, very passionate, and they like to express themselves in an emotional manner. You may also know people who are very controlled and reserved in their emotional response when interacting with people. The other variable we need to look at in relation to this model is how people assert themselves. So how they assert themselves when they're interacting with other people. And certain people will be what's referred to as tell-assertive. They have no problem with issuing instructions to others to tell them what needs to be done. Now, this type of assertion is not for everybody's liking, so we can also look at another style of assertion or assertiveness. And this style would be ask assertive. Now, based on these two variables here, we can categorize people into 4 different types of social styles. So just remember that it's the behaviors engaged when interacting with other people. So based on somebody who is an individual who controls their emotional response and is tell-assertive, their social style will be noted as a driving social style. Driving. And we just need to look at what somebody who has a driving social style would value and what they would like to avoid. And this will give us a bit of insight into these types of individual. So a person with a driving social style would value results. They like to get things done. They like to meet their objectives. They like to meet their targets. What would they like to avoid? They would like to avoid failure. And they will engage in all kinds of behavior to ensure that they meet their targets and they avoid failure. So that's our driving social style. A person who has a tell-assertive style and tends to emote will be referred to as an expressive social style. And we can look at what they value and what they would like to avoid. So they value, or what they consider to be important, would be creativity. They like to brainstorm, come out with new ideas. They're high energy, they're looking to the future, they value creativity. And what would they like to avoid? They'd like to avoid rejection. And so it's important for you to know that if you're dealing with somebody who has an expressive social style and you need to reject one of their ideas, that you might be met with a very emotional response, because these people tend to emote. The next style we're going to look at is referred to as amiable. So amiable. And an amiable social style is somebody who is ask assertive and tends to emote. What do they value? They value relationships. So relationships with fellow work colleagues, and they want to make sure that they maintain harmony. So that would mean they want to avoid conflict. So when you're interacting with somebody who is has an amiable social style, you want to make sure that you're going to be very delicate how you approach issues around conflict, because they may feel deeply uncomfortable with that. The last one we're going to look at is referred to as an analytical style. And an analytical style would be somebody who controls their emotional response and who is also ask assertive. So what would they value? They would value precision. So they like to have lots of evidence and facts to make decisions, and if you want to get the best out of them, you need to make sure that you provide them with enough evidence to justify your point of view. And what do they want to avoid? They want to avoid ambiguity. They don't like vagueness. They like things to be right, they like to be right, and they like to have all the evidence in place before they make a decision. So that would help you when you're interacting with those type of people. What's really important for you concerning this particular model is you try to identify a person that would fit into these type of social styles. So can you think of somebody you know who would strike you as an analytical social style individual? Can you identify somebody who comes across as having a driving social style? What about somebody who is expressive? Always think of people. And then finally, can you think of somebody who is amiable in their social style. If you can, it makes it a lot easier for you to use this model. Now, this model is very good because it teaches us a couple of really important things. And the first thing it teaches us is how to identify the social style of an individual. And it teaches us by doing a simple thing. We need to observe what people say and what people do, and then we need to be able to identify which one of the 4 social styles they fall into. And the second thing, which is really helpful, it helps us interact with a person in their social style to get the best results out of that particular interaction. So those are the 2 things that it teaches us. And then our question would arise as to why is this model effective? And it's effective for a number of reasons. The first reason is it really is easy to remember. Easy to remember. There are only 4 social styles we need to be able to recall: amiable, expressive, driving, and analytical. And also, it's easy to apply. Because once you have a good understanding of these type of social styles, you'll be able to flex your behavior to get the best out of the interaction with these types of individuals. And finally, why it's very effective is that it eliminates barriers to high performance. High performance. So these things that we spoke about earlier on, relationship issues, communication issues, and work practice issues, by being aware of this particular model and applying it correctly, you should be able to eliminate a lot of the barriers to high performance. If you would like to learn more about management and communication skills that can be used with immediate practical effect even, you could have a look at my website, michaellukecollins.com. Thanks for watching.